Have you ever felt like you were talking to someone, and something just didn't add up? They're smiling, but their eyes tell another story. Their laughter sounds cheerful, yet there's a crack in their voice that whispers of sadness. They say, "I'm fine," but deep down, you can sense they're carrying a hidden weight. It's as if a mask covers their true self, and the more you look around, the more you realize almost everyone is wearing one. People pretend. They pretend to be happy, to be kind, to be strong. They pretend everything is fine, while inside they wrestle with fear, anger, insecurity, or worse, motives they'd never admit out loud. So here's the question. If almost everyone is hiding something, how do you know who they really are? The answer lies in Stoicism. This ancient philosophy doesn't give you a mystical sixth sense. Instead, it teaches you something even more powerful: the ability to remain calm, to withhold judgment, and to observe deeply. You don't need magic, you need clarity. With a Stoic mindset, you can read people in ways they don't even realize. Not through what they say, but through what they do. In their tone of voice, in their smallest actions, in the way they treat others when they think no one's paying attention. That's where the truth slips through the cracks. In this video, I'll share 6 powerful techniques that will help you uncover a person's true character through the lens of Stoicism. These aren't tricks to outsmart others. They're tools to protect yourself from deception, avoid toxic influences, and understand people on a deeper level. Because at the heart of it, this isn't about winning or proving yourself better. It's about seeing reality clearly and building connections rooted in truth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone can show me my mistake, I will gladly accept it." That's the spirit we need when observing others, not rushing to judge, but patiently watching, listening, and learning. If you're ready to notice what usually goes unseen, if you want to hear what's left unsaid, then stay with me, because sometimes it's in the smallest reactions, the subtle pauses, the simple question, "Are you really okay?" that someone's true self finally comes to light. And it all begins with the first technique: 3 simple words that can open the door to hidden truths. Tell me more. Now let's dive deeper into why it works. Have you ever been in a conversation where, all of a sudden, the person you were talking to grew unexpectedly emotional? Maybe they revealed something deeply personal, something you never even asked about. And yet, there it was, out in the open. Why does this happen? Often, it's because they feel that you're truly listening. Here's the secret. Don't rush to argue. Don't jump in with your own story. And don't try to steer the conversation. Just nod gently, maybe smile a little, and simply say, "Tell me more." These words seem ordinary, but in the right moment, they're powerful. I remember a friend of mine who's extremely passionate about one of the strangest debates: pineapple on pizza. In the past, I would have argued with him right away. But instead, I resisted that urge. I simply said, "Tell me what happened." To my surprise, he didn't just argue back. He opened up about his childhood, about weekly family dinners, and even a hidden trauma connected to that simple topping. Suddenly, it wasn't a silly food argument anymore. The conversation turned into something far deeper. That's why this technique matters. When you choose not to judge, people lower their defenses. Without even realizing it, they start revealing truths they normally keep hidden. I've used this in business meetings, in tough negotiations, and even with people I knew were concealing something. I didn't push them, I just kept listening, repeating softly, "Tell me more," until they willingly admitted things they hadn't planned to share. But let me be clear, This is not a trick for manipulation. It's not a tool to deceive or exploit others. Stoicism teaches us to listen without hidden motives, not to prove ourselves right, but to truly understand. As the Stoics remind us, real strength isn't found in raising your voice or winning an argument. It's found in quiet observation and deep understanding. So the next time you're in a conversation and you feel the urge to correct someone or cut it short, pause. Hold back for a moment. Instead, say those words. Tell me more. You might be surprised at the depth of the stories that unfold. And you might finally see the truth, simply because you knew how to listen. And once you've mastered this first technique, it's time to move on to the second, observing how a person treats those they consider below them. Because if you want to see someone's true character, don't just watch how they treat you, watch how they treat the waiter, the janitor, the security guard, the new employee, anyone without status, power, or influence. These moments speak louder than polished conversations in a meeting room. I once knew a man who seemed like the perfect gentleman. He was polite, always smiling, respectful, and charming during meetings. Everyone thought he was genuinely kind. But one evening, when we went out to eat, his mask slipped. A waiter made a small mistake with the order, and this man suddenly exploded. He barked orders, raised his voice, and treated the waiter as if he wasn't even human. In that moment, I realized the truth. His kindness had been nothing more than a performance. He was polite only when he had something to gain. This is why Stoicism teaches us not just to listen to what people say but to quietly observe what they do, especially in simple, ordinary moments. If someone is truly good, they don't choose who deserves respect. They treat their boss with respect. Yes, their friends, of course, but also the waiter, the guard, the stranger they'll never meet again. So if someone is sweet to you but rude to the waiter, remember, they are not truly kind. They are simply acting. Their behavior is calculated, useful only when it benefits them. But when there's nothing to gain, their real character shows. And often, those who belittle others are the ones carrying deep insecurities. They step on people to feel taller, to cover up their own fragile self-worth. That arrogance, that condescension, it's not confidence. It's a sign of weakness. And if you see them boastful or dismissive toward the people society tends to overlook, like the janitor, the cleaner, or the elderly stranger, it's a red flag. One day, when they no longer need you, you may be the next target of that disrespect. On the other hand, when someone shows respect to everyone, the powerful and the powerless alike, it reveals something very different. It shows humility. It shows a true habit of kindness. Not just an act. That's the Stoic way. Silent observation, clear understanding, and respect for human dignity, even when there's nothing in return. So the next time you meet someone new, don't get swept away by charm or flattering words. Instead, pause. Watch how they treat the people others often overlook. That's where you'll find out who they really are. Which leads us naturally to the third technique. Understanding that a person's past is the key to their present personality. People may say the past is behind them, but the truth is, it's never really gone. It lives on in every action, every decision, every small reaction they make today. In the previous part, we talked about how a person's past always leaves traces in the present. And by understanding that, you can better see why they act the way they do today. Building on that idea, let's go deeper. Sometimes the real issue isn't in the action you just witnessed, but in the story that lies behind it. The truth is, someone may not be fully present in the moment, but that doesn't excuse toxic behavior. Instead, it gives you a way to understand them better. Because sometimes, you don't need to immediately challenge or criticize an action. What you really need to ask is, where does this come from? This is exactly what Stoicism teaches us, to keep an objective view. And what does that mean? It means not rushing into anger, not rushing into judgment. It means taking a step back, observing the whole person standing in front of you. In relationships, especially in love, you see this pattern all the time. At first, they might seem sweet, caring, even perfect, but suddenly, they turn extremely jealous, or they act cold and afraid of commitment. If you look deeper into their past, you'll see they are still carrying wounds that never fully healed. Maybe they've been hurt over and over again. And so the pattern repeats itself in every new relationship. Not because they want to hurt you, but because that's their defense mechanism. Think of a friend who always craves attention. Perhaps in childhood, no one ever really listened to them. Or a colleague who avoids teamwork. Maybe they were once embarrassed, excluded, or left to struggle alone. Present behaviors, no matter how puzzling, usually grow from past experiences. This is the key in a Stoic mindset. Don't just look at the person in the present. Find out the story that shaped them. From there, you'll be better able to decide how to respond, whether to walk away, or simply observe and understand without letting emotions control you. You don't need to change them, but through your understanding, they might begin to change on their own. The past is not always obvious. It can be hidden carefully. Yet once you see it, you'll also see the full reason why they are the way they are today. And that is the real way to understand, not just what people do, but why they do it. And once you grasp this, you're ready for technique number 4. Noticing sudden changes in tone, the subtle signs that reveal when someone may be hiding something, or even lying. And from this, we learn that listening is not just about hearing with the ears, it's about noticing the tone, the gestures, and the emotions that accompany the words. I once had a friend who was usually cheerful, always lively in conversation, but whenever I suggested a more serious plan, or something that involved a big expense, his voice would suddenly become flat, lower, almost forced. In that very moment, I knew he wasn't comfortable, even though on the surface he kept saying, "Everything's fine." This is exactly what Stoicism emphasizes: deep observation. Don't just listen to the words, listen to the tone, the rhythm, and the shifts in emotion. Not to judge, but to understand whether what you're hearing is truly sincere. Because sometimes, a change in voice doesn't mean they're trying to deceive you. In reality, they may be deceiving themselves. They're not being honest with their own feelings. And that inner conflict unintentionally leaks out through their voice, like a crack that cannot be hidden. Ask yourself, why did their voice change? What are they afraid of? Why do they need to speak so forcefully? As if they're trying to convince not only you, but also themselves? Within those questions, you begin to uncover the deeper story hidden behind what seems like a simple conversation. And most importantly, don't just use this technique on others. Try reflecting on yourself. Have you ever said something, yet inside felt awkward, or not truly believed in your own words? If so, that's a sign you too are experiencing an inner conflict. In Stoic philosophy, the goal is unity. Thought, speech, and action moving in harmony. When these three align, you become whole. And when you are whole, you not only understand others more clearly, you also gain a deeper understanding of yourself. And from here, we move on to technique number 5. A person's true nature is often revealed most clearly when they believe no one is watching. And that leads us to a deeper truth. Emotions can reveal what truly matters to a person. Have you noticed? When someone reacts far too strongly to something that seems small, it often means the situation has touched a sensitive spot within them. You don't need to ask directly, "What's important to you?" because sometimes they themselves can't put it into words. But by observing how they react, you'll often find the answer more clearly than in anything they say. I know someone who is usually calm, quiet, and easygoing, as if nothing really bothers him. But once, when someone suggested a small change to the project he was working on, he immediately exploded with anger, defensive, harsh, unwilling to let go. You might think, isn't that just a simple piece of feedback? But to him, that project was deeply personal. Any attempt to alter it felt like a direct insult. That's exactly how people operate. Emotions flare up most strongly when something important to us is touched. A boss may appear composed in many situations, but the moment someone asks a question that makes him feel disrespected or undermined, his temper rises instantly. Or a friend who's usually cheerful may suddenly sulk when left out of a group plan, perhaps because deep down, he carries the old wound of always being excluded. And then there are those who feel overwhelmingly happy when praised, simply because they grew up rarely hearing that they were good enough. Stoicism teaches that emotions are not the enemy. They are signals, clues that help you understand the person in front of you. But it doesn't stop there. You must also turn this observation inward. When you find yourself angry, irritated, or stung by someone's words, ask yourself, why am I reacting so strongly? What exactly inside me is being touched? Is it just my ego? Or is it something tied to a core value I hold dear? Often, we don't get angry because the other person is wrong. We get angry because they've unknowingly struck a wound we've been carrying. And in those very moments, if you choose to listen closely, you'll learn so much about yourself, about your true priorities, about what makes you vulnerable, and about the places within you that need strengthening if you want to stand firm. We've seen that emotions often reveal the hidden truths buried deep inside each person. And that's why, when sudden reactions appear, what matters is not only the words spoken, but also the insecurity behind them. In reality, many times you don't get angry because the other person is wrong, but because your own wounds, your own insecurities, have been touched. A true Stoic understands this. They know how to read emotions, but they don't let themselves be carried away by them. Instead, they turn emotions into a mirror, reflecting back the attitude, the priorities, and the personality of others, as well as of themselves. So next time you see someone suddenly reacting too strongly, whether too happy, too sad, or too bored, don't rush to judge. Instead, ask yourself, what is important to them here? Which part of their character has just been touched? By asking these questions, you'll begin to see more clearly what's really happening inside their heart and mind. And as you train yourself to observe in this way, you'll notice that you start to understand people on a deeper level. You become calmer in dealing with them, and you'll also see more clearly who truly deserves your time, your effort, and your trust. Technique 7. Listen to the silence between words. There's an interesting truth most people don't notice. What someone doesn't say is often just as important, sometimes even more, than what they do say. In communication, the pauses, the hesitation, or even a fleeting look can be the true voice of the heart. Have you ever asked someone, "Are you okay?" And they replied, "Yeah, I'm fine," but then went quiet, their eyes drifting away, maybe forcing a faint smile? The words sound fine, but the silence that follows tells you something is definitely not fine. Body language and silence work like hidden subtitles, visible only to those who know how to observe. When someone deliberately avoids a topic, or gives very short answers followed by silence, it often reveals that they are hiding a worry, an insecurity, or simply don't want to share what they truly feel. Take the workplace, for example. A manager asks, "Do you feel comfortable with this deadline?" The employee quickly responds, "Yes, of course." But then there's a long pause, and they avoid eye contact. That hesitation is the real signal. It may mean they're afraid they won't meet the deadline but don't want to admit it. Or in a relationship, your partner says, "I'm fine, don't worry," but their voice drops, their eyes fall to the ground, and then comes a heavy silence. In that moment, the phrase, "I'm fine," is just a mask. The truth lives in the silence. So how can you practice this technique? Learn to listen not only with your ears, but with your full presence. Don't rush to fill every gap in the conversation with more questions. Give silence a chance to speak. Often, it's in those quiet moments that you hear someone's heart most clearly. Technique 8. Observe the consistency between words and actions. There's a famous saying, "Watch what people do, not just what they say." People can hide behind words, but actions almost always reveal the truth. And when there's a mismatch between what someone says and what they do, it's a sign that something deeper is going on. Imagine someone who constantly insists, "I really care about my health," yet you notice they skip meals, stay up late, and smoke regularly. That inconsistency tells you that health isn't truly their priority, at least not right now. In the workplace, this becomes even clearer. A colleague may say they're very excited about the team project, but they consistently procrastinate, avoid contributing, and never take initiative. Here, words are just a shell, while actions reveal the real story. Perhaps they're not interested, or maybe they feel unprepared to handle the work. It's the same in relationships. A partner might keep saying, "I love you, you're my priority," but when you need them, they're always busy, always making excuses. The words may sound sweet, but the actions speak louder. And if you pay attention, you'll see the truth behind the promises. So how do you apply this technique? Simple. Place a person's words side by side with their actions. Then ask yourself, do they match? If they do, you can trust more easily. If they don't, the inconsistency itself reveals more than they intend to show. A Stoic doesn't rush to judgment, but they know how to use this observation to see reality clearly. Because in the end, actions remain the most honest mirror of who someone really is. Looking back, we can see that reading people is not some kind of magic trick, nor is it meant to turn us into controllers or manipulators. It is simply a skill that helps us understand more deeply the rich inner world of those around us. The 6 original techniques, along with the 3 expanded ones, give us a kind of map to observe, listen, and sense more subtly what is happening behind words and actions. And most importantly, when we practice these skills, we don't just become people who understand others, we gradually learn how to understand ourselves. For every glance, every gesture, Every pause in a conversation reflects a fragment of the soul, a piece of truth. The world is indeed complex, but also profoundly beautiful, if we know how to listen with both reason and heart. Reading people is not about judging, but about connecting, not about spotting weaknesses, but about building trust, not about gaining control, but about learning how to walk alongside. Finally, remember this. The skill of observation and understanding is not something you learn once and then leave behind. It is a lifelong journey, nourished each day by attentiveness, by experience, and by sincerity. The more patiently you practice, the more clearly you will see that behind those small signs lies an entire story. A heart, a soul, waiting to be understood. And perhaps, in learning to understand others, we may also find ourselves. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Stoic Glow so you won't miss the next content.